Well, hello. Welcome to the Up and Coming. I'm your host, C.J. Thank you for joining me today. And we're going to dive right on into the word. Today, I would like to talk about a serious topic on today. I'll be talking about abandonment issues. A lot of people are dealing with them. They don't know what to call them. It's so comes from so many different walks of life, and it's entering into people's lives, and they don't know what to call it. They call it disrespect. They call it they've been disregarded, or they just simply been dissed. But in reality, it's abandonment issues. A lot of people don't know how to let go of people that have let go of them. And they have attached themselves to them, and they're so attached that they're attached emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and they don't know how to release other people that have abandoned them and let them go. So, therefore, by them being so attached, it's difficult for them to release them. And we're going to talk about the different things in which, a lot of people are dealing with this. It comes from all walks of life, from all different forms. A lot of times, you've been abandoned by your peers. There are also times you've been abandoned by your colleagues, your associates. You've been abandoned by your children, even your mother or your father. So a lot of people don't know exactly what to call it, and they've been dealing with it time and time again. And sometimes there are times you can walk into the room and you can feel that certain individuals don't want you in that room, or they don't want you in their conversation, or they don't want you to be a partaker of what they're doing. And a lot of times you try to play it off like, oh, maybe it's just me. But no, it's not you. There are abandonment issues, and it's real. And a lot of people are suffering from depression and anxiety, and they don't know what it's coming from. But a lot of times, different people, they experience abandonment even in the womb. A lot of times nowadays, technology is so advanced that they can take a blood sample from the mother, and they can also take a, a saliva swab from the father. And within the 7 week period of a child being in the womb, they can tell who's the father. And so, therefore, if the abandonment don't enter in through the womb, it enters through a wound. Sometimes you're wounded and you don't even realize, how far advanced you've been wounded to whereas you've become traumatized. And so the wound, even in a wound, when infection sets in, it's because of the germs and the bacteria, and it's been building so long that, eventually, you suffer from pain, you suffer from chills, you suffer from fever when there's an infection in the body. So a lot of times we have infections in our body to whereas we've come into contact with abandonment issues and we don't know how to handle them. So I'm going to talk about some different things in which, to identify, when there has been abandonment, and you'll know it. A lot of times you play it off, or you downplay it to say no, they're not, being, treating me like that, or they're not disregarding me, or they're not, just counting me out, or not, including me in being in their circle. But abandonment issues is really real. So there comes a time when people don't want to acknowledge you. That's a part of an abandonment. They don't want to acknowledge you. They don't want to give you the time of day. And a lot of times when you approach them, they'll begin to look at their watch like, I don't really have time. Or they'll look at their phone, and letting you know that, hey, you're on the time schedule, that they really don't want to be bothered with you. So therefore, that's coming against, abandonment. And then there are times when, they'll interrupt you, and you can be in a conversation full engulfed, and lo and behold, someone will come out of the blue like as if you're invisible and you're not there, and they will, just, you know, uh, the conversation, you can be having with the other individual, it can be just simply one-sided, whereas there's, a sense of an abandonment because you're not being heard. So, and then there are times when people, they'll talk at you instead of to you. So by them talking at you, they'll try to think that they're better than you, and try to belittle you, and try to make you think that what you're saying is insignificant. But you just keep going and know that, this is, it's real issues. I want to just bring and shed some light on the different abandonments, that, issues that people are actually dealing with. And this is, on a daily basis. It's not, just something that, I mean, it's happening every day, not just, periodically, but on a daily basis. People are dealing with it. And I tell you, I didn't realize it until, the word came up and out. And I realized that, oh, that's a real issue. And it's like it hit my spirit so strong. And I can tell you some abandonment issues, but right now I want to stay focused on, these different characteristics and different things that you encounter on a daily basis to help you to identify, about the different abandonment issues. So they don't invite you to special occasions or gatherings. In other words, they feel as though, your input is irrelevant. So they don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't want to invite you to their special occasions, or they'll downplay it, or they won't be prompt to attend your special occasion. They'll show up late, or, they feel as though the host is not important, or they'll, have you waiting for a long period of time before they show up. I mean, that's, just totally disrespectful. So, also, they'll downgrade you to others. They'll speak ill of you, and then they'll try to get other people to join in and say, oh, she's this and she's that, and it's nothing good. It's always something bad. But I've learned a long time ago, as long as people have a mouth, they're going to talk, whether it's good or bad. So you have to make a conscious decision that, irregardless of what they say about you, long as it's not true, you're good. Just keep moving on and just take it, and just go on. Just turn a deaf ear to it. But I know it's hard, but sometimes there comes a time we have to, confront situations head on. But it comes a time that this is what, you're going to encounter as, being the disrespect coming in, and the disregard, and just being dissed totally and completely, to whereas it has abandonment to it also, because you're excluded, you're not included in the conversation. So in other words, also, they don't uphold their vows. They'll make an agreement, but they won't stick to it. They feel as though, they don't need to uh, uphold their end of the bargain. There's no honor. There's no integrity. So, therefore, this is another thing in which, the disrespect comes in, and the abandonment comes in as well. Because, when you love something, you have a tendency to honor, or to keep your word about what you're talking about, or what you want to engage in with the individual with. So, therefore, you just want to be, intentional about keeping your word. And there comes a time that the individual, by them not keeping their word, they'll deliberately lie to you. And they don't feel as though they have to have a reason why they did not keep their word or their end of the bargain. And they'll ignore your boundaries. You can set boundaries, and it's like, they're disregarded, and that's another form of just total disrespect. um, and they don't respect anything that you stand for. So by them not respecting what you stand for, it's they don't really care, and they can care less about your feelings. So a lot of times we wear our feelings on our sleeves, but we want to just face that it is abandonment, to whereas you've been shut out, you've been isolated, but don't just stay there in that rut. You can get up. So in other words, try to um, different individuals, they'll try to reduce you beneath to where you're at and who you really are, because they feel as though there's no chance of you coming up, or there's no chance of you rising to the occasion. But you'll prove them wrong once you continue to love yourself and get to that point where I am somebody, I do matter. And so therefore you have to take time just to concentrate on you and realize that you are valuable and that you are important and that you are significant. So don't downplay yourself and don't fall into these, abandonment issues, because a lot of times what people do, they'll try to enforce these abandonment issues that they have. They'll try to enforce it on you, to whereas they'll try to make it your problem. But no, you give it back to them, because it's not your problem, it's their problem. So once you come into the realization, once you get that deep down in your spirit that it's not my problem, it's their problem, and I'm not going to make it my problem because I choose not to, you'll be fine. So you got to go on and remember that, you're not the victim. And so by you not being the victim, you can't make yourself the victim. But a lot of people, they want to become the victim and make you out to be the bad person. But you're not the bad person. So don't allow anyone to enforce something on you that you're not. Because a lot of people will try to define you and try to create your own character and take your character out of context, to whereas when you have a public victory, they'll try to privately shame you. Or if you have a private victory, they'll publicly try to embarrass you. But you have to take what it is that God has given you. You have to know you. Get to know you, and get to know you to the point that when someone says something about you and you know it to be not true, then you don't allow that to be enforced upon you. You don't take on that character and say, oh, this is me. No, I don't let other people define you. You have to define yourself. So with that being said, you are an agent of your own change. When you're the agent of your own change, you tend to change the situation. You change your way of thinking, change the way you see things, change what you say, and change how you see yourself. So what you have to do is you have to start doing something different. Just start by thinking about yourself differently. The way other people, they say they see yourself in a different light. Start thinking about yourself differently, and begin to say what it is that you want to see about yourself. So start seeing yourself in a different light, to whereas you can see yourself growing and just flourishing, to the point that, hey, what other people say, it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't affect me. Only what I say about me really matters. So when you change what you say about yourself, you change your whole world. Because even the world, was formed by what the Lord said. When the Lord said, let there be light, there was light. So what are you saying about yourself? And that's what you have to check. What is it that you're saying about yourself that is known to be true? Other than what you're allowing people to create and to speak into your life, to whereas, they're miserable, they're not happy. So why would you allow what they say to really matter and to become a part of your life and to make it a reality in your life? So let's disregard, what they're saying. And let's start by, creating our own world, creating what it is that we see in us that other people don't see. A lot of people, they're on the outside looking in, but they don't really know you. But why would you let them define you if they don't really know you? So they don't really value you, is what that is. So don't allow people to build your world with their words. You build and create your own world with your own words. So in Matthew 7:6, it talks about, the pig. And it tells us, do not cast our pearls before swine. So in other words, you don't take something that's valuable. You don't take your words about yourself that's valuable and, cast them before someone else. You don't allow another person to define who you are. Because once you take, the words of yourself and you allow them to, just define who you are, or just label you according to their standards, no, because they when people don't value you, they don't see the good in you. So by them not seeing the good in you, they're gonna always see it through a glossy lens. They're not gonna see the perfection in you that God sees in you. So a lot of times you can't even really talk to certain people about simply about yourself, because they don't understand and they don't see you in that light in which you see yourself. Because a lot of times when you share certain things with certain people, they'll belittle it, or they'll disregard it as if, you're not important. But you have to understand that everyone is not listening to you about you. So you have to make it a point to listen to you about yourself and define who you are, and don't let another person label you. Because when you allow someone else to label you and they don't like you anyway, it's going to be a problem. And so why not take the time just to say that, I love me enough to think good about myself. I love me enough to tell myself, what it is that I am ambitious. I'm wonderfully made. I'm fearfully made in the image of God. So God loves me irregardless of my flaws. And you have to remind yourself that I love God and He created me for something great. So I'm going to enjoy, His wonderfulness, because there's wonderfulness in which He's created you in. So you don't have to give your words to people that don't value what you have to say. And abandonment, like I said, if it doesn't enter in the womb, a lot of times, people have complicated pregnancies. And by them having complicated pregnancies, is either, they're having a dispute with the individual they're pregnant by, and, it doesn't go too well with the baby in the womb. A lot of times, that rejection, it'll begin in the womb in the event if the father don't want the baby, the mother doesn't want the baby. It shows up in the baby when the baby is born. So abandonment can start in the womb. And when it starts in the womb, it's like in the event, whatever challenge that your father or your mother had and they never dealt with it, the baby is going to be left to deal with it. So that's a form of abandonment. It can start in the womb. W-O-M-B, the womb. Another thing, it can start in a wound when you've been wounded. W-O-U-N-D. When you've been wounded and all this infection sets in and all the different challenges, all the rejection, all the naysaying, and that thing is never, cleansed out. All that it piles on top of each other, to whereas the abandonment, it gets so crucial to the point that, hey, I need a release. And a lot of our young men are growing up without fathers, and our daughters are growing up without fathers as well, where they've abandoned the child and never did go back to check on the child or see about the child. And in this day and time, a lot of grandparents are raising their grandchildren. So abandonment issues are real. And not only are the fathers abandoning the child, but there are mothers that have abandoned their children as well. I mean, I've known families to, abandon their children, to whereas they just abandoned every last one of them. And there were families that had 8 children, 10 children, and they just abandoned them totally and completely. Whereas even CPS been called in, and in the event if a family member or friend doesn't take the child, then the child is sent to live with foster parents, and it traumatizes the child. So abandonment, is not just abandonment by itself. There are other issues, there are other things attached to it that are linked to it, that brings in other spirits, to whereas the child has a problem functioning in reality. There are some scriptures that I wanted to share about abandonment. In the event that you've been abandoned, someone that's been abandoned, to the point that there's help. And in Joshua 1:9, it talks about, for the Lord God is with you wherever you go. That means wherever you go, the Lord is with you. And I know a lot of people, even during the holidays, people felt so alone and so just left out and so disregarded. But even no matter where you go, the Lord is with you. So you have to meditate. A scripture I wanted to share with you all. It says, for the Lord, it says Psalms 34:18. For the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. In other words, there's a lot of pain associated, with abandonment. I mean, there comes a time that the individual wants to escape this pain, this grief, this sorrow, this failure, this loss, this sorrow, this frustration. But one thing about it, you can ask God, go to God and ask Him to help you, and He will. So He said His ears are open to the cry of the righteous. So even though we don't feel as though we're righteous, but God's ears open to you and to your cry. So go to God in your prayer time and ask God to help you. Sometimes it's just admit, and I admit, sometimes, Lord, I'm clueless. Lord, I need your help. And ask Him to help you, and He will. He will not turn you away. So don't be afraid to go to God and ask for help. It's not the time to commit suicide. The suicide is real, and a lot of the pain is so deep and so heavy and so deeply rooted that we have to take the time just to, see about our brothers, see about our sisters. Sometimes just a listening ear. And don't make light of, people that's dealing with depression and anxiety, because it's real. It's real, and people are dealing with these abandonment issues, to whereas they don't know what to do. So a lot of times, they just trying to function on a daily basis. Just getting out of bed is just one day at a time. So if you know someone that's dealing with depression, just be a little more patient with them, but also, seek help. There are counselors, in your neighborhood, in your community. Don't, be afraid to ask for help, because there are numbers that in which you can contact different agencies, and they do give free counseling. So just seek it out, and be patient with the individual and help them. Okay, and another scripture talks about Psalms 27:10. It says, "For my mother and my father have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in." So even though there comes a time we can experience abandonment from a parent, or both parents in some cases, but know without a shadow of a doubt, there are broken homes, and broken homes can come from a variety of sources. It can be, just drugs, alcohol. It can be, domestic violence. It comes a multitude of reasons why, people homes are broken up, and they're left there either with one parent, and sometimes no parent. They end up with their grandparents. So take the time just to be patient with different individuals, because you never know what the individual is dealing with. And even as a child experiencing growing up in a broken home, there are times when that situation, it lingers over into adulthood. I've known of many people, they could not get over, being abandoned as a child, or their father end up leaving, their mother and father end up divorced, and they have just waddled in it, and it's just made it, it's their life. So you can't be insensitive to an individual that's dealing with abandonment, and feeling though they were abandoned or didn't have the ample tools in order to for their parents to stay together so that they can be a family. So you want to be patient with this individual, but even as a child, going through experiencing a broken home, it traumatizes the child to some degree. And a lot of people think that no, they're okay, but sometimes just sit down and talk to the child that's missing their mother or their father, and you'll see and hear the cry of their heart. So don't just dismiss, a child that's their parent is not around, their mother, their father. But we want to know that God can feel the emptiness and the void that's in our hearts through that's those that's dealing with abandonment. He can feel that emptiness. He can feel the void, and so He can heal the hurt. But also, like I said, we just have to go to God and ask Him for the help that we need. And if this broadcast has been a blessing to you, and you would like to sow into the broadcast, please see the information at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, and have a great day.